Get started here. I want to make sure that we add value to the folks in this audience. Can you tell me, just a round of applause, who here is in the real estate business? Y'all got a little second. All right. Who here is just an entrepreneur? Okay, she rolls her hand. I'll take that. Who else? What other fields we got here? Government. You came in because Johnny told him to come here. Nobody? No, nobody? Okay, cool. All right, so my first question is for those in the audience that may not know who the two of you are, could you share a little bit about how you got started, and then Donahue, how you jumped in and how you got on board?
Absolutely. Well, it's good to be here. It's good to be in my hometown. By the way, we're committed to D.C. I just left New York about 2 hours ago and flew into College Park just so I could be here. And I was filming at my apartment earlier this afternoon a new pilot, the beginning of a new pilot reality show, of all things, for Amazon.
Wow.
And earlier I was in my house in Sag Harbor, so I jumped a lot of hoops to be here, and I wouldn't miss it for the world because this is a great city. It's the city that I started in, and so I got started like a lot of other people get started in business. And our business has been a family business, or real estate's been a family business since before me. So I was born in D.C. at Freedman's Hospital, which is now Howard University Hospital. At that time, that was the only hospital that my mother could have me in because of segregation. My mother went to Spingarn High School in Northeast D.C., and she got married and had me at 19, so she was a very young mother, and she ultimately got into real estate because she was buying a house in Prince George's County and a subdivision, and saw that when she was signing the closing statement how much money the sales agent, the broker, made and how little time she had spent with them. So she decided that she would go into real estate because it seemed like a quick way to make some money and support her young son and herself. So she worked in real estate as a broker, an appraiser, worked at Fannie Mae, and what I saw as I was raised by my mother. My parents got divorced on the spot, so what I saw as a primary breadwinner for me was my mother. And so I saw the challenges that women confront in business every day, but then I saw the challenges what a black woman confronted every day. And so that one kind of changed my worldview, gave me a real reality check of what this country was and what was happening in D.C. at the time. And I saw her persevere and wanting to expose me very early. I got exposed to real estate. Probably by the time I was 12 or 13, I had a good working knowledge about that business. And then when I went to college, I wanted to be a doctor, and after my first year of medical school, I changed my mind, so I quit and came back to D.C. to earn a living, and the only person that would hire me, of course, is my mother. And so I got a job working with her, and she had a small appraisal business, and then I got my sales license, and that was 1979. And my mother wanted to support me so much so that she changed the name of the business, and it became Peebles and Pool, and she put my name first on top of that, which used to be her name. And that, when I look back on that, it was about the beginning of building a family legacy, about building wealth. And so I was taught that there were no limitations. I grew up in D.C., so in 1974, when I was 14 years old, the city got its first right to elect its own government. Up until then, it was appointed by Congress. 1974, I met somebody who would then become the mayor of the city, Marion Barry. And in 1978, he got elected mayor of Washington, D.C. And his platform, by the way, was very different than what we'll hear in politics in the general sense today, was the economic empowerment for African Americans.
Right.
And so I was keenly aware D.C. is a very engaged city. So thanks to him, I got my first opportunity to build a building in Anacostia. I started working on that project when I was 26, 1986, and built that, delivered it in 1989, and the city's been in there ever since. The city leased that building, pre-leased it from me, enabling me to build a building and make it economically feasible, and kickstart economic redevelopment in Anacostia east of the river, which had seen no economic development for a very long time. And then after that, built that building, delivered it in '89. City just renewed the lease for 16 years, and Donahue is now doing the renovation of it. And from that one building, I built a business that today has completed several $1 billion of developments around the country. Now have, our company has projects in Boston, New York, Philly, DC, Charlotte, Los Angeles. We've done business in Las Vegas, San Francisco, and a few other places. I've had the benefit of my company being named Company of the Year by Black Enterprise in 2004, Forbes in 2007 listed me as one of the wealthiest African Americans in the country.
Top 10.
Forbes again, relisted me again. We have, I've had the benefit of getting all kinds of recognition, but I mean, it would not have happened had it not been here. And people ask me, kind of, what do I think about the opportunities that come from DC? And had I been born in a different place at a different time, you would not know me. I certainly wouldn't be up here talking to you today. So, I mean, I think that we're in a place of great transformation, great opportunity. DC is a place of great opportunity.
That's awesome. Awesome. Donahue.
Sure. Very, very similarly to my father with his mother. My father was very intentional and deliberate about bringing me up in the business very, very early on. Some of my earliest memories actually are real estate related. I know when I was very young, I loved construction, and we did one of my first birthday parties at a job site. None of my classmates really appreciated it either. And I learned addition and subtraction, like how you carry numbers. I learned that on a P&L. And when I learned long division, how you take a number, you carry, you subtract. I actually forgot how to do that entirely now. But that's the day I learned what a cap rate was. And so from a very early age, my real estate education was simultaneous with my conventional education. And so whether it was nature or nurture, I don't know, but I fell in love with the business. And then my father, he's of course incredibly successful. He got that way by doing more than what was expected of him. And so very, very often he always tried to push me farther than what would conventionally be expected of somebody in my position. And so day in and day out, there was this culture of excellence that sort of permeated through our household, that one had to live up to. And so from getting up early to make sure I got jump shots up before school, to coming into the office after school, before practice, right? These were all not just things where I went above and beyond, but baseline level expectations. In fact, a story that sort of lives on in our family lore a little bit, and certainly among my friends, is when I graduated from college, we all sat down at a dinner table, and I worked full time while I was in school and run our DC hotel project here. And my mother gives a toast, and she ends up saying, "Donnie, you really exceeded our expectations." And my father says, "No. You've met them because we've got high ones." It's a true story. And so now, right, so much of the technical mastery came very, very early on. Pushed me to have internships on Capitol Hill, at Guild Big Credit Suisse, and Citibank, and the real estate group, all with college students while I was in high school. And so there was always that expectation. So by the time I graduated, launching full steam ahead in the family business, wasn't much more difficult. Frankly, it was easier because I didn't have this whole college thing weighing down on my time. And now, it's really an honor and a blessing to be able to continue and perpetuate that culture of excellence and that family legacy that we've built up for the last 25 years. And it always, when he and I do these things, I always like to take the very beginning of the discussion to express to you how grateful I am for the opportunity and how I hope to do justice to that legacy and to that opportunity every day.
Pretty close now. Were you always this close? I mean, working together, I feel like, were there some challenges at some point?
I mean,
Wallace.
No. I mean, Donahue, I had, because of how I was raised, my mother had very high expectations for me. I was my mother was one of 5 girls, so an entire generation of girls. I was the first boy in a generation on her side. So I was highly anticipated. And there were huge expectations of me. And my mother was a big thinker, even with the barriers that she confronted. So I felt that, okay, if those kind of expectations could be placed upon me in the situation that I was in, then I could put, some greater expectations on my kids. I think that with great opportunity comes great responsibility. And with great opportunity comes even more opportunity. And so I would have been satisfied if he had done, and happy for him if he had picked a different career as long as he was committed to excellence. But what we did, I made a decision that, I thought he would be well suited for, business based on just his demeanor as a kid. But also I think you can create an entrepreneur. You can make yourself an entrepreneur. I made myself into an entrepreneur with the help and support. So we started off by sports. I think sports is a very good skill set developer for learning how to compete, learning how to win, learning how to lose, make adjustments. So I started him in basketball, and I started coaching him at the time he was 6 years old. And so from 6 until about 13 or 14, when the game went too fast for me, I coached him and his teams in AAU, YMCA, AAA basketball. I moved my office from downtown Miami to closer to my home so I could get to practice more timely. And so I began to coach practices, and then work after dinner again to finish up the day's work that I had ahead of me. But it taught us how to work together and how to solve some problems together, how to make some adjustments, and how to deal with each other under pressure. And so I always had him play up. I never let him ever play at his age group until, by the time he was 17, 18, obviously he was playing at his age group. But before, when he was 12, I had him at 14 and under. When he was 13, he was at 15 and under. So the idea was he needed to have a bar that was further ahead so that he'd learn how to compete and jump some hurdles. Because, in other regards, I think life would come pretty easy for him. I've done pretty well, so I could offer my family a lot of different opportunities that other people would have to really fight for. So how did I create an environment where he would be able to fight and have that drive? And so he works for almost a different reason in many regards than how I do. He works for his own personal achievement. I think that is a better driver than external drivers. So he's done very well, but I think that's how we learned to work together initially.
Yeah. So was he harder as a coach or harder as a boss? Let's next question.
I think what it is he was hard in both scenarios.
Yeah.
And I think there's a really discernible reason for something like that. And I think, including my father, I met a ton of outrageously successful folks. And from what I can tell from meeting them, that a measure of a man's success, is his ability to meet and master the obstacles that are in his path. And both through basketball and in my work life, and frankly in my personal life, right? My father has been very intentional and deliberate about calling out those obstacles and challenging me to meet and succeed in spite of them, to overcome them. And in basketball and in work, I feel kind of grateful that he holds me to such high esteem, and that he places pressure, and he places a ton of scrutiny on the outcomes of my projects, on the outcomes of our basketball games, on my effort level in practice, right? Ever since I was very young, I always took a ton of pride in that, because it's not granite that they hold under a microscope, right? It's diamonds, right? It's diamonds that are really nitpicked and prodded and tested, right? And I always wanted to look at myself as somebody who was going to be a diamond, and so I needed that prodding. I needed to be under that microscope, because that's where I was going to perform. And so, of course, I think he was harder on me than he was on some of the other kids, and I'll hold it against you. But I didn't turn it on that much.
But I wasn't that hard. I gave you what I did is I gave him respect. responsibility.
Yeah.
And gave them accountability, because with responsibility comes accountability. I think that's more. I think if you looked at today how we interact in business, I give you significant responsibility. Just like, other senior executives get lots of responsibility, and I just hold you accountable for the responsibility.
I completely agree, right? I think what it is, right, is the understanding that you're responsible for your outcomes, right? And that you have agency over the processes and your results, and success is sort of nothing more but the time and attention, right? And mastery is nothing more than that same time and attention. And so every day, you show up and you lay some bricks, right? Rome was never built in a day, but every day you can show up and you can lay some bricks, and at the end of the millennium, you've got a beautiful city, and that's what we try to do, and that's the example that I got to follow. I mean, it wasn't like he came home, coached basketball, kicked his feet up, and watched the NBA games. He went back into the office, right? Yeah. And we stayed up far past my bedtime, till 2, 3 in the morning, getting deals done, because that's what it took. And I have an example of somebody who never counted the cost, right? Who always was results oriented, and no matter what it takes, no matter what we have to do to get to the finish line, we're going to get there. And just following that example and seeing that over and over every day, and the consistency by which he attacked that goal was incredible, and something that hopefully forms my actions today.
So speaking about Rome, you mentioned Rome wasn't built in a day, but it was built. And at some point in time, it was done. And I think a lot of folks in the audience may feel like, you hit the success point. What motivates you to continue to go when you don't have to?
I mean, I think that growing up again in D.C. gave me a different purpose. Growing up during the Civil Rights Movement, the post-Civil Rights Movement, didn't make it about money as much. I mean, I wanted to have a nice life. I wanted to be able to provide opportunities for him and his sister and any kids I would have, and take care of my family, take care of my mother, my aunts, and so forth. I mean, so I was motivated by, I wanted some security, but I wanted to do something transformative. I mean, it wasn't by accident that the first building that I built wasn't in downtown D.C., it was in Anacostia, because I felt that if we're going to see our communities rebuilt, we have to be the ones to rebuild them. And so I chose that as kind of the step I wanted to take.
That deserves some. Come on.
Yeah.
And so I was motivated by that. And I'm very fortunate, and I want this to come out the way I intended for it. I stopped working for money a very long time ago. I vastly exceeded my economic expectations. In high school, I wanted to be like Walt Frazier and Earl Monroe, $300,000 a year. And yeah, I think so. And that was my dream, to be able to do that. And then my dream was, okay, I want to build a building in D.C. And then, my dreams evolved. And so, but what I saw was the transformative power that comes from entrepreneurship and ownership. And so that I could send a message that if I can do it, I am so unlikely a recipe for success. My father was an auto mechanic here in D.C. and a file clerk for the Federal Power Commission, which is now the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. And he went to work a few blocks down the street from here, 4th and G Street. My mother grew up in D.C. And went to Springfield, Northeast D.C. Got married at 16, had me at 19. I quit college. There's no reason in terms of the ingredients that I should be here. Yeah. So what I wanted to show, and I've tried to do in my career, is to show that anything's possible for anybody. And if you are willing to think big, work hard, become a student in whatever you pursue, and be committed to excellence, you can do very well. And so what motivates me is being able to reinforce that, and the transformative power of being able to create economic opportunities for other people. I am extremely frustrated and disappointed in many regards about the progress that we've made as a people. I gave a speech this past Thursday before the National Association of Black Hotel Owners, Operators, and Developers, and they held a conference in Miami.
Is there any specific way that you want us to like analyze the deal to, you know, bring it to you and say, hey, this is a good deal financially? Like, are you looking for like specific like analytics, or like what does that look like?
Yeah. And one of the statistics, I looked up some statistics when I was working on my remarks, and one of them was home ownership. So and then income. So to give you a perspective, in 1968, toward the end of the Civil Rights Movement, black household income was 57% of white household income. Fast forward to 2006, it actually dropped to 56% of white household income. So what that tells us is that there are some tremendous barriers that we still have to overcome. And so what gets me going every day is how to overcome those barriers. So every project that we do as a company, we are committed to 35% minority and women-owned business contracts across the So if you do the math, our $4+ billion of projects, that's $1.4 billion of contracts that are going to go to minority and women-owned businesses. So the power to be transformative and to do that is really what kind of gets me going each day. And also the fact that we're building a legacy for Donahue and for his sister, my daughter Chloe, and then the next generation. Because I look at business and entrepreneurship, I look at it as a relay. So there's a 4x4 relay, right, where you got 4 legs of 100, right, and 4x1, and each runner runs their 100 yards, hands the baton off to the next one. So our business is a never-ending relay. Hopefully, that there'll be another person to grab the baton. Hopefully, doing it in a different way, in a more innovative way, learning, evolving. I mean, Donahue is a better business person than I was at 25. He will be a better business person when he's 30. He'll be a better business person than I was at 30, and so on. He is better at this than I was at his age, and if he keeps pace at it, he'll be better. And he's going to do it differently than I did, and the opportunities and the environment are different. So those kinds of things keep me going.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You want to do?
No, just to piggyback off what you said, I always like to say, we don't have as a family, we don't have a 30-year plan. We have a 300-year plan.
Whoa.
There's a generation.
That's what it is.
But it's true, right? I mean, real estate is one of the few assets, right, that's immutable. There's this poem I love by Percy Shelley, Ozymandias, and it talks about a traveler that comes across a deserted kingdom, and the only thing he sees is this monument. And it's supposed to say that everything, no matter how great an empire is, everything collapses. But the real estate developer, and we got something else out of that. So, well, everything but that building, right? And I bet that real estate developer, right? I bet that the builder, right? He can say something. His contribution lasted the test of time. And so we make, very, very permanent consequences in the communities that we invest in, that we develop in. And our goal is to do that differently than any other firm and change the paradigm between doing well and doing good. Because far too often firms say, in order to do well socially, right? In order to do justice socially, we have to forego profit, right? We have to do good and forego doing well. But I think that paradigm is fundamentally skewed, right? Because you can make money and do so in a way that's accretive to the value of the community that you're investing in, right? And not necessarily detrimental. And so our 300-year plan, right? Our generational plan transcends, our lineage, right? And will metastasize into a paradigm shift where we really begin to do things differently as a society and as a community of real estate developers, so that our permanent imprints in our societies, in our neighborhoods, add value to those same neighborhoods.
Wow. Can I get a round of applause from folks that are under 30 years old in the room? Donahue, given that the audience is a lot of folks that are under 30, Can you talk about being young and having a seat at the table? Of course, your dad is the boss. How do you walk into a room and command that merit that people know that you should be there at that table?
You know, that's a great question. That's a really great question. I think the truth is that I don't concern myself with how people perceive me in a given room. Right? That's not why I'm in the room. We're not in the room to ascribe value to my contributions. We're in the room to achieve an objective. Right? And I'm going to do everything that I can, right, in order to make sure that we achieve that objective. And that's from running the meeting to taking notes. Right? I think when you have a collaborative and a team-based approach to solving problems, then you attack the problem. Right? When you have a me first, your perspective to solving problems, you attack each other. Right? And I'd much rather be part of a successful team than lead a failed enterprise. And so, to me, I think it's important. I think it's important to command respect, but I think you do that by doing the work. I think you do that by being fluent, in the topic. I think you do that, by being willing to add value in any way, shape, or form. I think you do that, by making sure that you're a subject area master, right? And that's work you do before you step in that room. But once you step in that room, all of your attention needs to be focused on achieving the objective that you're there for. And I think very, very rarely does that go unnoticed. And so that's how I approach it. And I think it adds value to some extent.
Under 30 folks, that was good, right?
Moving on to real estate. I want to know the real estate climate as people of color, for people of color at different times in your life. So I guess when you were coming up, it was a lot more challenging than it probably is for you now. Can you just share about being in the industry, being a person of color?
Yeah, I think in some regards, the environment today is maybe more challenging than it was when I started. I think when I started, there was a fresh awareness in the country that African American entrepreneurs, black entrepreneurs, we had to jump over higher hurdles. That people in America who achieved as black people were generally having to go through a more challenging effort. So there was this idea that, okay, we understand that we've had a system that's unfair, and we're actually going to try to right it and rebalance it. And I think that was the benefit that I got. It was helpful that I happened to be African American and from Washington, D.C., for the city to sign a lease for a major office building to be built by a black developer who was 26 years old, who had never built a building before. That was it. Basically, it was determined it was okay to give me that opportunity. And so I think the climate then was very fertile. So you saw, BET started here. Bob Johnson created Black Enterprise Television here, and the foundation of that business was the DC cable television franchise that he was awarded by the city of Washington, again an environment of black entrepreneurship. So DC was a mecca for African American entrepreneurship. I think what happened, many great things that happened in the 2000s, and one of them, one of the greatest things was Barack Obama being elected president of the United States. What happened also is that it got us to a place, we got America to a place that thought, they came up with a new phrase, that it was post-racial. And that we have now gotten to a place where we're all equal. We've got a black man who's president now, everybody's equal, and we started all off in the same place, and so we're now in a meritocracy. And so everybody fends for themselves now, and there's no need to be more progressive in terms of providing economic opportunities. Almost every affirmative action effort or every minority contracting program got attacked. And so the environment changed. So back then, I believe that there was a keen awareness, and we're going back to it now, though. You're seeing it in the discussions in the media today about equal pay, equal access to economic opportunity, and so forth. But I think, back when I started, I mean, I had a very receptive environment that was important to me. Now, the media treated black business people far differently back then than today. I mean, it took me 30 years to get a good story in the Washington Post. I mean, an actual pleasant one that I was proud to actually read. I mean, and I've been doing a lot of stuff here, and I think I had left to come back, and the article was Return of the Native Son. I said, now here it is, right? Once they don't have you anymore, now you come back and it's okay, right? So, but I mean, I think in short, the environment for real estate, Washington, D.C. was changing, by the way. None of downtown was really built. Pennsylvania Avenue was decrepit, essentially, and there was an organization called Pennsylvania Avenue Development Corporation that was created to redevelop Pennsylvania Avenue. Washington Harbor was used for salt storage and sand storage for the snowstorms, and the garbage trucks were parked there. So that was what the Georgetown waterfront was. I mean, you look at the wharf didn't exist. You know, I mean, nothing was around the National Stadium but warehouses and, you know, power plants. So, I mean, DC evolved, real estate became, you know, of age, and that was what created this great opportunity, and I think a great wealth generator back, and I think that ran all the way till the early 90s when we had the banking crisis, and then it changed.
Climate for you?
You know, again, you know, he always says it best. He always gets to say it first. No, but it's true. You know, I think what undermines the climate today is sort of the post-racial dialogue or post-racial policies, right? And I think that there's this sort of generational chasm with folks. Not to insinuate that there's a big gap between us and that you're older, but the folks who are between you and I, right? Folks in their 40s and in their late 30s and in their early 50s. Right, have a different view towards right-sizing the scales oftentimes than your generation, and I think are much more aggressive and outspoken younger generation. And I think as a consequence, because your generation or that generation just below you know, has a little bit more power than we do politically at this point, we're seeing a dialogue, you know, around equal access to economic opportunity skew towards a more meritocratic outcome. And we fail to recognize that the average household net worth for a black family in Washington, D.C. is 1/81st. That's 1/81 that of a white family. Okay? I mean, the fact that that continues to exist in 2019, you know, 60 years after the civil rights movement is unconscionable. There's no way to rationalize that besides systemic and consistent racial oppression. There's no other way. And you read all the academic literature, you read Color of Law, you read the new Jim Crow, and you sit here and you wonder why it is that we haven't changed this, right? And we haven't changed this because our policy actors have not vociferously advocated for us. That's right. They're Democrats first, not black. They're Republicans first, not usually Republicans, not black. Our policy actors, they want to go along to get along, and not get what's right. Right? And that's you know where I think where I think the struggle is today. And as our younger generation gets a little bit more involved as we continue to get older and continue to make compelling campaigns for public office, I think we'll see a paradigm shift that's more attentive to our under 30 desires, needs, and wants from a policy perspective.
I think Bill, from moving it back to a business perspective, I think social media is going to empower dramatic change. I think part of what happens is knowledge and information. Right. I mean, so I always thought, when I started the business, I thought that I needed to have a large amount of cash to build a building and large amount of cash to build equity. And I didn't understand that there was how the leverage business worked until I got further into the real estate business and how it's possible, and I see this in New York, where someone can buy $7 billion of real estate with $40 million of their own money and leverage it all from there. So, and then typically someone building a $100 million project, the chances are has no more than $3 million of their own money in. Now, $3 million is a lot of money, but $100 million is a very big project. So the idea here is more information, and I think that there's more information available with more information, people will utilize the resources that are available to them and capitalize on them. And I think that there is a tremendous opportunity and positive outlook on real estate in general, especially I think people of color. I think this will be, I think that when we go into 2020, I think that will be the decade of women. I believe that you will see a transformative. There will be a transformative impact in terms of women as entrepreneurs because social media, the Me Too movement, and so many other things have heightened awareness to the things that went hidden before, and the injustices and the unfairness and the opportunities that are out there. So you're going to see that dramatic change. And I think the same thing in a frankly a more advanced way we'll see with people of color, especially Black Americans. I think that there's a great opportunity for us to go and rebuild our own communities. And I think that's where great opportunities come from real estate.
Absolutely. I think bringing it back to a business perspective is appropriate there. I think, and I say this to my friends in the audience, you've probably heard this one before, right? But the struggle of the 19th century was emancipation. The struggle of the 20th century was enfranchisement. The struggle of the 21st century is equal access to economic opportunity. In short, it's access to capital. Right? If we can invest not in our communities, but in members of our communities, not in the physical dirt that's in Anacostia, the physical dirt that's in Congress Heights, but in the human beings that reside there, we're going to see that wealth gap, that income disparity shrink, and it's going to shrink fast because there's an economic incentive to identifying underrepresented profit, right? And our community represents that. There's nothing but untapped potential. And the first entrepreneurs that find that, harness that, and deliver capital to those individuals will be entrepreneurs that will make an unconscionable sum of money.
Staying on that point, you guys have a diversity fund, an investment fund you're doing. Could you share more about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of anybody who's in business, how many people are in business? Raise your hand if you got your own business. Okay, so if I gave you 3 challenges, and I'm going to say A, B, and C. Challenge A is finding opportunities. Challenge B is having a skill set to take advantage of the opportunities. Challenge C is having the capital to grow your business. Would it be A, B, or C that's your most difficult obstacle? C. Okay, there you go. So we all have that challenge. Now, I happen to, for the past, I guess, 8 years or so, been doing business in New York and living there a significant amount of my time in New York. And I have watched people buy billions of dollars in real estate. So I gave you an example just a moment ago, buying $7 billion of real estate with $40 million cash. I mean, imagine that. I mean, all you got to do is let it move 10%, and you've made $700 million on $40 million. That's a heck of a multiple by anybody's definition. And I've seen leverage and access to capital. I've seen people lose the buildings to foreclosure, get access to capital again. I've seen people build projects and not finish them, go and be able to go, survive and do another project. I mean, I've seen this happen in Miami, LA, DC, and significantly more so in New York. What they all had going for them is they had access to capital. So they had capital to start their business, they had capital to rebound, they had capital to grow again. And so I look at the fact that less than 0.2% of all venture capital money goes to businesses started by Black women. 0.2%. Okay, 0.4% go to businesses started by Black men. In real estate private equity, so the way my business works is all about leverage. So a $200 million project will be financed with, let's make it 100, it'll be simpler math for me. So $100 million you can leverage up, if you really try hard, you can leverage up to 70%. So you got $70 million of senior debt from a bank. Now that's going to be hard to come by too. If you're a minority firm, I mean, you're going to have to jump over all kinds of hurdles. They're going to ask you all kinds of questions they never ask anybody else. But let's say you overcome right? Even in real life. Now after that, you're going to then go, you got $30 million left. Now the way that works is that you go to a Goldman Sachs or let's pick, investment banking firm XYZ, and that runs a private equity real estate fund. And they're going to put up 90% of that $30 million for you. So you're going to put up, the developer puts up 3, and they put up 27 million. So you build a building that's $100 million, $3 million of your own money. $200 million building, $6 million of your own money. $300 million building, $9 million of your own money. And so it's a leveraged business. And so that project produces a 50% return on cost. So a $100 million building in simple mathematics makes a profit of $50 million. By the time you pay everybody back, maybe you got $30 million left. Okay, $30 million on $3 million of investment. I mean, that's 10 times your money in 3 or 4 years. So you do the mathematics, the returns are phenomenal. So that's how this business is done. But women and people of color get very few opportunities to do that. That's why you see this big wealth disparity. And so every time I've tried to build a project, I mean every single time, I mean I've been doing this for 36 years now, every time I have to explain nuances. I mean, I remember I was explaining to someone about, we had a dispute with a broker, and they were suing us for $400,000. I mean, we're building billions of dollars in projects. Forbes said I'm almost a billionaire. I mean, and they were bothering me about $400,000. I mean, but that's the kind of thing that I see all the time. We've had banks that say they don't believe the amount of cash shown on my financial statement and want to see the bank statement. So if I'm having these challenges, I know that other people are having challenges and seeing these challenges. And so over the years, with a lot of visibility that I've had as a company and as a developer, I get a lot of people coming to me to present me with deals. And they're very good deals, and I'm always puzzled as to why they can't get financed. And because they pay good returns. And so I got to a point where I said, this doesn't make sense. And I looked at, how do I, help bridge this gap? How do we do something to change this? And I talked about doing a fund a couple times before, and then this past December I got a call from the treasurer of the state of California and the deputy treasurer, and they asked me would I be willing to put together an emerging developers fund. And so I went back to my team, to Donahue, Terry who's here, Erica who's here, I think Ron is in here somewhere, Emil, our DC team started looking at this and exploring what it would look like. And then I started making some calls to banks and other, financial firms that we do business with and a couple of the pension funds, and decided to do a fund that would target minorities and women entrepreneurs in real estate who had not had access to capital and do smaller deal sizes. I mean, deals that are between $10 million and $75 million. And those $10 million deals, $20 million deals are normally kind of friends and family deals. But if we are only making 56% of our white counterparts and our net worth is what percentage?
1/81st.
1/81st. Chances are we don't have many friends and families that can lend us $3 or $4 million to build a real estate. So I decided that we would do a fund, and we would use that fund to be a tool of transformation.
Nice.
And so we are now in the process
Can you tell me how much it was here?
So $500 million is the first fund. We're going to do 60 deals. 10 of them will be in Washington, D.C. And we're going to go around. And the goal is to create more black real estate developers and more black women who are real estate developers and real estate investors. and we're going to invest in people who have good ideas and good projects, and do it more like a venture capital model. And we're going to change the model. We're going to prove that investing capital to people who have good ideas and are reflective of the demographics of the communities and cities where the projects are being built can pay an outsized return and be a very profitable business. And hopefully that'll mean that the Goldman Sachs and the Bank of America and the others will follow, and there will be more capital available to talented entrepreneurs.
I want to take a couple of questions from the audience.
So just one here, I think.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
We have very short time to be as brief as.
My name is Barbara Barnes. I'm a local real estate developer in DC. And I follow you, I earlier introduced.
Between Donahue and I, one of them started off as a taxi driver. The person who's building the tallest residential building in New York City, about 12 or 14 years ago, was selling wigs out of his living room in his apartment by mail.
Yeah.
So he got access to an opportunity and got capital to fund his dream. And he was able to deliver and perform as a talented person. The mentors for me in Washington, D.C. were three men. One of them was a busboy at the Mayflower Hotel. The second one was a parking lot attendant at the Mayflower Hotel. And the third one was a janitor at the Mayflower Hotel. So fast forward 30 years, I think this was in like the 1940s, 1950s. Fast forward to the 1980s, the parking lot attendant was the largest property owner in Washington, D.C.
Oh, wow.
And had the largest parking management business in Washington, D.C. called PMI Parking. Okay? The janitor built the largest waste management business in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, and built one of the largest construction companies called Wilco Construction. The busboy ended up developing and owning over 12 hotels in the Washington, D.C. metro area, including the Marriott Hotel at 22nd and M Street. And his name was Blackie Ogren, had Blackie's House of Beef, and he owned about 50 restaurants around the region as well. And so they also owned a bank, and of course, they got together and bought the Mayflower Hotel where they all started. So low barriers to entry, big dreams. And so I want everybody in here to dream big and know that there are low barriers to entry. And so the only thing missing is the access to capital. And that's part of what we're going to try to do, is to address that.
In short, I think your question was what is success to me, right? And I think we're all in this room, we're all young professionals, and we're hoping that I sort of couch the terms a dollar figure or a place I want to be career-wise. But I think the true measure of success is fast forward 30 years from now, and I'm sitting in this chair, and my son's sitting in this chair, and we can have the same conversation that we had today. It's fast forward 30 years from now, and the faces in the audience here are the same, but each of you guys has a business behind you, or a building behind you, or an empire behind you, and you're sitting here with your sons and your daughters having the same conversation that we are, right? Success to me is about being an instrument to help change the paradigm that we've talked about this entire time, right? It's to be somebody who moves the ball just a little bit closer to the goal line, right? Somebody much more intelligent than me said, we only see so far because we stand on the shoulders of giants, and that's true. We've only gotten so far because there are people who have taken the ball and got it to here so that we can continue running the race, right? We're only here, right, marking backwards. We're only here because Marion Barry was here. Marion Barry was only here because he had other great civil rights leaders like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr., right? And they were only here because they had other great leaders and thinkers like W.E.B. Du Bois. And we can work backwards because we've always pushed the ball further, right? And so I hope to at some point be able to look back on my career and say, I moved the ball as well.
Huh? Hi, my name is Akina. Mountain Peoples, I read your book, People's Principles, and I noticed when you did your first project here in DC, you developed